A stat I want to show you guys that just kind of sums up a little bit of this and also gives you hopefully a little bit of optimism in regards to why I think that this is going to not only improve this year on the back of just Kubiak coming in and making more of a point of emphasis, having Benton in here, getting a little bit more offensive line talent, coaching these guys up. I think all of that is going to definitely help out. But there's some reasons to look at some of the statistics here recently in the rush game, both for the Seahawks and the Saints, to also pull away from that some reasons as to why you can find some optimism here that not only is this going to be a point of emphasis, but it's going to be a successful point of emphasis. That you're going to find some headway and some room. Go back to 2023 for your Seattle Seahawks. Rush yards per game, they were 28th in the NFL. Rush yards per play, 16th. Rush EPA per play, 14th. So you're miserable with the rush yards per game, but kind of efficient at it. Middle of the road in your efficiency, better than where your rush yards per game were in 23, right? 24, 28th in rush yards. Once again, rush yards per play, 17th. Rush EPA per play, 10th. So these 2 years, you're back of the barrel as far as how your rushing yards are at per game, but your effectiveness and your efficiency at it, actually not that bad. Okay. So there would seem to be on those, I'm not saying take it away as an ultimate, but in some general terms and looking at those stats, you'd say, oh, well, this is an offensive line that has a little bit of an issue with commitment to running the ball. And I don't know if we can say as much on that in 23. I think you were kind of behind in certain games a lot of times, and you're kind of having the defense was really kind of sucking wind in 23, and that affected some of that. That wasn't as much of the case, I don't think, in 24. But it is the case in that both of those 2 years, you were a lot more efficient in how you ran the ball than you were in the yards per game that you were kicking out. And so a guy coming in with a system that's going to put more of the onus on running the ball, that's going to coach these guys up and get them better developed in how they can be effective in their blocks and what they're doing with that and how he calls the game and sequencing of plays is going to also help and alleviate that. But there's also some of this that's just built into me for improvement. That's just really, these stats to me scream out with 23 and 24. Stay committed, damn it, to running the ball. Just stay committed to it. These are commitment issues as much as anything to me on this, as it is that we don't have the line that can run block or get after it in that way. So then this is also aided when you go over and you take a look at the Saints. The Saints in 2023, before Kubiak came in there, rush yards per game, 21st. Rush yards per play, 31st. Rush EPA per play, 17th. So not the same kind of situation necessarily exactly to what Seattle was dealing with, where the efficiency was great with the Saints and the rush yards per game is almost a little bit of an inverse, where your rush yards per game were better than what the Hawks had been the past 2 years, but your efficiency wasn't as good as the Hawks' efficiency of the past 2 years either. Not really. Kind of close on the second stat, but definitely nowhere near on that first stat. So what did Kubiak do in his first year coming into the Saints? How did these numbers bear out from where they are right there? 14th in rushing yards per game. 14th in rushing yards per play. 10th in rush EPA per play. So thinking about this a little bit, considering this, he did this, number one, instantaneously. A lot of OCs, the whole going thing out there is that you got to get an OC in there and they need to have this first year to kind of get their system in place and get everybody understanding the ins and outs, and that you can't expect immediate returns with these kind of guys. Shanahan going to the Falcons in the first year as an offensive coordinator. Him and Matt Ryan kind of butted heads, couldn't kind of quite see eye to eye. It took him a little bit of time, but by year 2, the offense is flowing. Matt Ryan's an MVP. But what you have with Kubiak is, on a Saints team that he's walking the door on, immediate improvement from walking in that door. No wait needed to be had, at least as far as rushing the ball. And quite frankly, this was also the case when it came to pass protection, and would have probably been the case with offensive effectiveness. But the other cool part about this stat is that Saints team by about halfway into the year had lost pretty much, 50, 60% of their offense. Many of their offensive linemen out, Carr done by game 7, Alvin Kamara injured by about game 5, and not really much of the same throughout most of the year at that point. Chris Olave, the hospital ball that Carr throws him, he's done for the year by that point. Yet still, with Spencer Rattler starting for you at quarterback, with not much as far as the pass to, with an offensive line that's got some backups in there that you're trying to get along, you still, by the end of the year, playing half of your season with that personnel, you still are able to get this measurable effect, this measurable impact of improvement from where you were the prior year. So in Seattle, you have the opening for efficiency when you look at the 23 and 24 season and how you ran the ball, just the lack of commitment and running to it. You've got the improved offensive line you're bringing in. You've got more of the drive towards the personnel of the 12 personnel and the 21 personnel, which will be bigger, which will be heavier, which should make it easier for you to run the ball, especially when considering you're going up against these defenses with the lighter box and the cover 2 shells on the backside. And then you have the offensive coordinator who's showing with his past recent history, and not just here with the Saints, but take him back with the Minnesota Vikings, because that was his second stop as an OC. And he was also successful with the Vikings both getting great play out of Kirk Cousins and finding effectiveness in how they ran the ball. So not just a flash in the pan kind of situation, but the Saints place and the Saints situation wasn't just set up for him to go find success last year. 31st in rush yards per play. You take that up to 14th in 1 year. So we're going to improve in our running game this year. We're going to be committed in running it. And you better believe that Kubiak knows what he's doing with Ben and the crew that he's brought in there. And that this thing has had 3 decades of being kind of massaged and evolved into where it's at. And that you're going to find those rush yardage. And you've set the stage nicely here, not just by bringing in the coach, but making sure you have the personnel matched up to be able to run the scheme and run it pure as much as possible. We'll see on the talent of this offensive line. That's the big question about this crew as we go into this upcoming season is, are these guys going to be able to improve? Can Christian Haynes come forward from what was a pretty dark opening year? Can we see Abraham Lucas finally last a full season out there at right tackle? Is Gray's going to be able to immediately walk in the door and give you some significant impact? We don't know about those things, but every other item that you can look at on this offense, from the coaching to the scheme, to the play caller, to the track record of an OC who actually knows what he's doing and isn't walking in here learning on the job for the first time, as we were doing with Waldron, as we were doing with Grubb, who had never been an NFL offensive coordinator, and it's a different game from being a college OC to being a pro OC. All that stuff's out the door now. You've taken care of all of those things that's in your control to take care of. Now it's just a matter of whether or not this talent comes forward and they can reach to the fruition of that.